Welcome to Top 5 Friday, where I'm going to talk about the most anticipated games that just ended up not happening. They just got canceled. But before we do that, I'm going to talk about our sponsor, because this video is sponsored by Jay's mother.
Oh, it's Friday night. Don't know what I'm gonna do tonight. I could sit here and pick my nose while I watch a brand new video. Whoa, Top 5 Friday. Top 5 Friday tonight.
You know, this is the second time I've recorded this video because the mic wasn't on. Number 5 on my list is a game that I'm not even sure was officially announced. It was the early days of the internet, well, kind of the early days, my early days of the internet anyway. And it was hard to kind of figure out what was truth and what was rumors. Not much has actually changed. Whatever, I was reading rumors of this game coming out, and it just ended up not ever coming out. That's Midgar. So I was a huge Final Fantasy VII fan, and especially from right at the beginning, when you're in this city called Midgar. And it was just felt slummy, and it felt dark and dank, and it's underground. And I've always had a fascination with like underground cities. Come to find out, that's a very small portion of the game. It's a much bigger world once you get out of there, right? Several years had passed, and I'd heard rumors that they were going to make a video game based on Midgar, just that city alone. It was going to be kind of a sequel, but not really a sequel. And our friend Rufus was actually reading the same rumors, and we both kind of got hyped and into it because that was one of my favorite parts of the entire game. In fact, it was, I would say it was my favorite location in that game. I come to find out, I think that it was probably just rumors. There was never really any official plans, and I could be wrong, but I just remember being very disappointed as the years went by and we got no Midgar game. So number 4 is kind of a cheat, I think. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, but I remember being just in this state of euphoria after playing Super Mario World on Super Nintendo, and as the months went by, I started thinking, no, what's the next installment going to be? Is it going to be Super Mario World 2? Is it going to be Super Mario Brothers 5? Because there was a while where Super Mario World was called Super Mario Brothers 4. So my imagination was just running wild. My friend talked about it, and we just were really kind of anticipating and hyped up for what the next game was going to be. And it ended up being Yoshi's Island. Look, I'm not here to bash Yoshi's Island. In fact, it's one of my favorite Super Nintendo games. It's just not a sequel, in my opinion, to Super Mario Brothers. It's not a Super Mario Brothers game. It's an entirely different game. Good game, but not a Super Mario Brothers game. They just kind of tacked on the whole Super Mario World 2 to sell more copies, right? It's an obvious ploy, but whatever. Sure, there was a Super Mario Brothers 2 that was kind of the black sheep, but for the most part, you knew what a Super Mario Brothers game was going to be, and it was just like a matter of fact that the next one was going to be like that. And it ended up never happening, like ever. Not, well, at least not until DS and Wii came along and they went back to that style. I always wondered what it would have been like if we lived in a world right now that had a Super Mario Brothers 5, and how amazing that would be. All shook up, oh, yeah. I seriously just did this video and I can't even remember my list. It's just because it's hot and I'm losing brain cells. I didn't have that many to begin with, and I'm going crazy. So the next one on my list is number 3. is Star Wars 1313. This was going to be so cool. I love me some Star Wars game, but let's face it, most of them deal with Jedi, the Force, and stuff like that, which, hey, that's awesome. Can't get enough of that. But it was going to be cool to have like a nice change of pace. A Star Wars game that focused on things that you usually don't focus on, right? The seedy underbelly, the world of smuggling and bounty hunting and all that stuff that it's always been in the background of Star Wars, but never in the front and center, right? So we were going to get a game that was based on that. Unfortunately, Disney had to come along and not only ruin that, but also ruin the movie franchise as well, because they went and made 2. Well, you know what? No, I defended The Force Awakens. I thought it was a good little, good setup movie, but then they had to go and hire Rian Johnson, who ruined everything. So thank you, Disney, for ruining Star Wars movies, and thank you, Disney, for ruining Star Wars video games too. Number 2. So I love Silent Hill. I love Silent Hill. The first Silent Hill game is one of my favorite on the PlayStation. Silent Hill 2 is another one that I really, really like. And the other ones are kind of hit and miss. But those first 2 games are just some of the best of any franchise has to offer. Those 2 Silent Hill games are probably the 2 games that creeped me out the most while playing them. But maybe you know what I'm talking about. Silent Hills. It was the recent one that was actually supposed to be coming out. But Konami decided that they wanted to cancel it and just completely drop the ball. But the sorry thing about it is we got a taste of what the game could be. You got a free demo called PT on the PlayStation 4. And let me tell you, first 2 Silent Hill games were creepy. This PT demo was creepy and it was also scary. I'm not ashamed to admit that the PT demo, actually, there were a few times I was actually sweating and a little scared. I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I turned it off like a sissy. I felt very I guess the best way to describe it is uneasy. It was just an uneasiness about it. And I just think about that demo and what this game could have been. But apparently there were some kind of internal conflicts and just drama and all kinds of stupid, idiotic issues, and Konami just decided that they weren't going to make it anymore. So my number 1 most anticipated game, it's head and shoulders above all the other ones, by the way. Okay, let me build it up a little bit, right? Actually, because the game, I don't even think it had a name, and if it did, then it just escapes me, and I apologize. But anyway, one of my favorite games in the PS2 GameCube era was the game called 13. This was a first-person shooter with cel-shaded graphics. It was a first-person shooter, and at the time, I really wasn't that much into first-person shooters. But this game was so fun, and it drew me in so much that I actually started playing a lot more first-person shooters after this. I got into the Call of Duties, Big Red 1, Finest Hour, all that stuff. I really just kind of soaked it all in, and I had kind of a new appreciation or an appreciation for it after that. 13, man, it was something just so cool to me. You had these amazing graphics, but it was more than that. It was a good game to play. It was fun. It was challenging. It was all the above, right? All the things you want in a game, especially in the story department. And I love politics, right? Okay, I know I try not to get into politics. I try to stay out of it. I just like to watch and observe now. When it comes to like government takeovers and conspiracies and military coups and all that sort of stuff, I enjoy learning about that stuff. I enjoy the history of a lot of that, and I do read up on it and watch videos and stuff because it's always fascinated me, that kind of stuff. And this game captured that. That's what it was about. You start off on this beach and you have amnesia, but as you go along in the story, you start to kind of understand that, hey, there's this big conspiracy going on. Somebody assassinated the president and maybe you're involved, right? And so you learn as the story goes on more and more about this conspiracy that's going on to basically, well, spoilers if you haven't played the game, maybe you want to hit the pause button, 3, 2, 1. But it's basically a conspiracy to take over the US government, which, I've always been sort of fascinated about. The show Jericho is amazing. Watch the show Jericho. Jericho is the shit. I was just so invested in this story, like no other. Like there have been very few stories that really invested me in video game like this. Final Fantasy VII was one of them. There's been others, but this one has been right at the top of the list. And so just because of that. But what ended up being a big kick to the groin, all right, is the fact that the game's story, as soon as it gets to the fever pitch, right at the end, it abruptly stops and it ends on a cliffhanger. Okay, which, hey, look, that's fine if you want to do it that way. Except when you don't release the next game in the series, then it becomes a problem. I was looking forward so much to finishing that story, okay, because I had played the game, enjoyed it immensely. I was like, all right, well, when the next one comes out, hey, what are they going to call it, 13.2? Or are they going to call it 14? Who knows? But regardless, I'm getting it day one when it comes out. And I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited, and I waited. And then I ended up reading, I think like in Game Informer maybe, oh, hey, it's been canceled. So what happened? What happened in the story? Well, we don't know. Let me tell you, that's been the biggest kick to the nuts in gaming for me, is because I was so in love with that story, so invested in it. got to that cliffhanger, and it just, you don't get the answers. You don't get the rest of the story. It's just like, it's almost like The Empire Strikes Back. It ends, you know, at the end of that movie, but you don't get Return of the Jedi. Now some of you are like, well, that's good because no Ewoks, but F you, Return of the Jedi is amazing. There's nothing wrong with the Ewoks. You're being a baby, so stop. But that's what it's like, and that was just so heartbreaking for me. Heartbreaking for me. It made me want to take this and like stab myself in the freaking groin. Okay, the cardboard didn't actually help against the impact. So that's it. That's my top 5 most anticipated games that never ended up being made. I know you guys have some as well, so please let me know in the comments section, because I do read all the comments. I may not comment myself all the time, but I do read all the comments. Maybe there's some games out there that I actually had forgotten that I was anticipating, and I'm like, oh man, whatever happened to that? And then I get doubly mad, and then I take that razor and I stab myself in the groin again because I'm extra angry. So if you want to see me stab myself in the groin again, write down below in the comment section what your most anticipated games were that never ended up happening. And if you want, and you like this video, hey, give it a thumbs up because it helps the analytics and all that BS. I hate this YouTube crap, but that's just the way it is. By the way, thank you for watching so much, because without you guys watching, we couldn't do what we love. So thank you so much. But anyway, that's subscribe. This is a video right here that's probably a video that was not shown in your sub feed because YouTube. But anyway, if you haven't seen it, maybe check it out, maybe. Down here is Patreon if you wanted to throw a few bucks and get exclusive stuff. And then down below, what we have in the links is links to shirts. I know some of you have been wanting shirts and DVDs.